So today we're going to talk about subject-verb agreement, and there are a couple of things that you need to know before we begin our study today. One of these things, of course, are the terms. So really quickly, we're going to cover these terms just to make sure that you're familiar with them. The first term that I want us to take a look at, of course, is subject. And we've talked a little bit about subject. I know you talked about it last year as well. But your subject is who or what the sentence is about. You're generally looking at a noun or a pronoun whenever you look at the subject. It typically comes at the beginning of the sentence, and it can sometimes be confused with the direct object. And so we're going to talk about what that means in just a moment. But in order to have a complete sentence and express a complete thought, along with your subject, you have to have a verb or a predicate. And your verb, of course, is the action or the state of being of the subject. So there's that direct relationship between your subject and your verb. And so you have to make sure that they agree. That's the second thing that you need to know after you know the meanings of the subjects and verbs, is you have to make sure that they agree. But when you're talking about a verb, you're talking about action words like danced, ran, laugh, read, write, climb. All of those things are verbs. When you're talking about a state of being, you're talking about like even the verb, to be, the infinitive to be. So you're talking about words like am, like I am, she is, they were. All of those would be verbs because they're states of being. Now, the way that you know your subject in a sentence versus your direct object, which is sometimes confused with your subject, is that your direct object is who or what is receiving the action of the verb. Now, this is going to make a lot of meaning. It's going to matter a lot next week whenever we talk about transitive and intransitive verbs. But when you're talking about direct objects, you're talking about who or what is receiving the action of the verb. So let's just take a look at an example so that way we can begin to distinguish these three things. So let's look at the practice sentence, I tell my friends the truth. First of all, you should ask yourself, who or what is this sentence about? So you're looking for like a noun or pronoun possibly. And you're going to see that one of the first nouns or pronouns that you come upon, and obviously it's a pronoun because it's I, is I. Now, how do you know that your subject is I and not friends and not truth? Well, you ask yourself, who or what is this sentence really about? And you learn that this sentence is really about I. To even make sure, even more, that your subject of the sentence is I, you have to have that direct relationship between your subject and the verb of the sentence. So you scan your eyes to see if there is an action or a state of being. And of course, you come up on the verb tell. Now, just like we learned some noun tests, like if we have like a plural form or if we can put an article in front of it to determine whether or not it's a noun, you would do the same thing with tell. And so one of those tests with tell is if you could have an ed or an ing form. So can you say told and can you say telling? Yes. So we know that tell would function as the verb in the sentence. So I tell. And we have to have that agreement to make sure that if you have a singular subject that you are using a singular verb. And so we know that tell would be the verb in the sentence. And what I mean by singular, plural, like if you would say I, you would either say was, am, or will be. He or she was, is, will be. You or they were, are, will be. Your subject and your verb have to correspond. A singular subject goes with a singular verb. Plural subjects, you have to use the plural form of the verb. So you have to know how to conjugate the verbs. And now you're going to see if you have a direct object in this sentence, just so you know to distinguish I from friends and truth, since those are other nouns in the sentence. So you would ask yourself, who or what is receiving the action of telling? So who is receiving that being told, like whatever is being told? We know that it is friends. Oops. And so there is a direct object because friends would be what is being received from the telling. So who or what is receiving it? Well, you have friends. And so friends would be your direct object. In this sentence, it says, she danced across the stage. So with this one in particular, you would look for the verb. And by the way, we know that these are simple sentences because we count the number of verbs that we see, and we see if there is a subject that corresponds just especially to that verb. So I see a verb here with danced. I don't see any other words that could possibly be a verb. And so I know that it's going to be a simple sentence, and my subject is going to be she, because she is doing the action. She is performing the action, and danced would be your verb. Do you have a direct object? Is anybody or anything receiving that action? The answer for this one is no, because it simply just says across the stage, which is a prepositional phrase. And so this sentence could simply stand alone if you just said she danced, because there's no other necessary information to communicate that thought that will come after it. So across the stage is really just a prepositional phrase. So you don't have a direct object in that sentence. So there has to be that direct relationship between the subject and the verb, and that's what subject-verb agreement is all about. You're going to have some exercises that you guys are going to do with IXL. You have 3 with subject-verb agreement, and then 1 in particular with verb tenses. You can click on them from here to access them, or you can simply look at these letters and then go to IXL. But either way, your progress is going to be recorded, so make sure that you achieve that 80% mark for mastery.